Welcome to the Preserving Family Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to equip you to gain insight, information, and inspiration to help you protect, teach, and guide your family during these turbulent times. Our goal is to provide tools and resources to help you strengthen and preserve your own marriages and families. Now here are your hosts, Dr. Mark and Janie Ogletree.
Welcome to Preserving Families today. We are so grateful that you have tuned in, that you've joined us, that you follow us. We are very, very grateful for all of you. We're grateful for when we get to meet all of you, that you come up and you tell us and you're thankful for what we're talking about. And we honestly, it really makes our day. So
yeah, it's fun to run into those people in different obscure places, right?
Yeah, it's so fun. So fun. Well, we just wanted to remind everyone that we are doing a church history trip this summer, beginning of June.
So it's June the 3rd through the 12th. Yeah.
3rd through the 12th. We're going all the way from Rochester, Palmyra area, all the way down through through Ohio, and then down doing the Nauvoo, Kansas City, and we'll end there. It's going to be about 10 days. It's going to be awesome. I think we have about 7 or 8 seats left.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested in that, they're going fast, and we're super excited to get our bus filled up. So if anybody's interested or want to pass that on to anyone, we have people bringing grandkids, lots of couples.
Some people bring in their teenagers.
A couple teenagers. Yeah. So if anybody's interested, we would love to have you sign up. It's through Morris Murdoch Travel.
Yeah, you can just go to their website and they'll have that trip listed. Or you could just email us at either preservingfamiliespodcast@gmail.com or just ogletreemd@gmail.com, and we'll hook you up.
It's going to be super fun, though, if anybody's interested. Okay, let's get into our topic today.
Right.
A couple weeks ago in our stake, we had a marriage and family conference, and we had some incredible speakers, great headliners. It was an awesome couple days. But Mark concluded the conference, and when he finished, I was like, oh my gosh, that would be a great podcast. You need to talk about that. Because what he talked about was the importance of family in our civilization, why it's so important, but also Satan knows that, and how terrified Satan is of that, how he hates that, how he wants to destroy that, how that is his goal. So we thought that would be great to and all of us know that, but let's really talk about that and kind of chew on that for a few minutes. And I think he had some really good points. So yeah. Just to get a reminder that we as parents really, really need to, be on double caution of that, because he's working overtime.
Well, I think that's one of the points, Janie, is that when it comes to marriage and family life, we're definitely swimming upstream, right? I mean, the opposition and the pressure against marriage and family, it's not a family-friendly society anymore, right? Or a family-friendly culture or a neighborhood or community in every case. And so, and I just think of that. I still remember a scene, and maybe I've described it before, but it was one of our nieces and nephews on your side of the family coming home from a mission. And that little scene at the Salt Lake airport that's really sacred in a lot of ways, right? Well, in any airport, right? But Salt Lake literally has made a place.
It made a huge room just to welcome missionaries.
just for when missionaries come home. And it's just a sacred, in my mind, it's a pretty sacred and cool experience. And here was this person, a security guard that you could tell probably wasn't really religious and did not like the family, but was just trying to make that a miserable experience for everyone. And you could just see the hatred on their face as they looked at this happy family that was just reuniting with a son in that case. But I remember thinking, man, it's so sad that there are people out there that literally just don't like the family. And it was just, once again, it was just very clear the way that this person acted, the way that they talked to us, the horrible treatment. They just did not like the family at all. And I think there's just a lot of people like that out there, but that's driven by Satan. I mean, he's behind all this. And this is a reminder, of that great statement. Our entire podcast is based on this statement by President Spencer W. Kimball. He said it in 1980. And what he said is that the time would come when only those who believe deeply and actively in the family would be able to preserve their families in the midst of the gathering evil around us. And Janie, I think we could both say, and I think a lot of people would attest that, yep, I think we're living in that day right now, right?
Right. I think we're doing all that we can to try to preserve our families, to preserve our kids, to keep them safe emotionally, mentally, physically, it's spiritually in this environment, because Satan literally is quadrupling his efforts.
And he's out to get them, right? He's out to get us. He wants to.
Well, I think he's out to get us individually, but then the whole family unit.
Right.
And just this whole societal view of family, there's people now that don't even consider that a thing, they would just be happy raising kids in big groups of daycare or whatever, you know what I mean? And so
they don't value the
family. They don't value the family and the role of parents, the need for a father, a need for a mother, a need for children. I mean, he's hitting us at every angle.
Right. It's really interesting, Janie, over time that prophets, seers, and revelators have talked about how important the family is, not just to the church, but also to our nation, to civilization. Listen to this statement from President Ezra Taft Benson: "The family is the cornerstone of civilization, and no nation will ever rise above the caliber of its homes. The family is the rock foundation of the church." And then President Hinckley said this, very similar, but he said, "The strength of any community lies in the strength of its families. The strength of any nation lies in the strength of its families."
Yeah. Another quote that goes right along with that from Spencer W. Kimball. He said, "The family is the basic unit of the kingdom of God on earth. The church can be no healthier than its families. No government can long endure without strong families."
Yeah. So the nation can't do it. The church can't do it. One of the things that I do in my class at BYU on the eternal family is we talk about this for a minute, and I can see, as we're talking about how crucial the family is to society and the church, I can see in the faces of our students that not everyone's totally sold on that. You're right. And I'm sure that's because of the influence of the media and other places that we've really downplayed the family. But I'll say, okay, let me ask you guys a question. Raise your hand if in the mission field you served among, like, let's say you were in a group or a branch. I mean, a branch is small, and then a group is even smaller. And I'm actually surprised how many of them served part of their mission in a group. Like, I'm talking like there was like 5 or 6 people. We know that our daughter in Norway, that probably should have been called a group when they were.
That would have been big to have 6 people there.
Yeah, and 2 of them were the missionaries, But I'll say, what was it like in that group or that branch to have that one strong family that just held everything together? And I'm like, who I'm talking about. That family that they each had they had 6 callings between the mother and the father, and they were just there for everything. And sometimes we'll even have one of those students raise their hand and say, "Oh yeah, that family moved out," or "that family decided to move to Utah or to America," or whatever. And the branch just collapsed. When they left, it just crumbled. And I remember, Janie, for me, there was a family, and I won't say their name, but a father and mother and 10 children in that branch. And it wasn't just the mom and dad. The children actually held major callings as teenagers. They were leading the music in church and helping teach Sunday school and primary. And that family moved away, and I watched that branch just scramble. They didn't know what they were going to do. That family held it all together. Well, that's the same principle that society rests upon, that families do hold a nation together. It's in the family where values are taught and lessons are learned. It's where we learn how to become adults, mature men and women. I mean, you can go on for an hour about the lessons we learn in our families from a loving mother and father that just can't be learned anywhere else.
Well, and I think it was reiterated in our state conference on Sunday, is the importance of the family, because in the eternities, we're not going to have wards and stakes, and it's not going to be church run. It's going to be family run. The priesthood in our families, we're going to be organized by families. And so we need to learn right now how to organize families, how to run families, how to live heavenly in our homes, because that's what it's going to be one day.
Yeah, I love it. But we know that Satan doesn't like that idea, does he?
Exactly, no.
He's going to try to ruin that for us.
Absolutely.
So maybe we should say it this way. It has been interesting over the years how directly some of our church leaders have talked about this very thing of how Satan is out to destroy and ruin families.
So Elder Boyd K. Packer, back in 1994, said the ultimate purpose of the adversary is to disrupt, disturb, and destroy the home and family. That is his ultimate goal.
That's his full-time job, right?
Like a ship without a rudder, without a compass, we drift from the family values which have anchored us in the past. Now we are caught in a current so strong that unless we correct our course, civilization as we know it will surely be wrecked into pieces. And that was 20 years ago.
Right. And you think, oh man, how wicked were we in 1994? But yeah, I think that's an important thing for parents to think about and couples to think about in their marriage, that if that's Satan's ultimate purpose, disrupt, disturb, and destroy, he's coming after us, right? And we can't just sit idly and pretend like it's not there. Here's another one from Elder Hales that he gave when he gave a talk on the eternal family. This also was in the 1990s. But I always do this with our students. As we read through something like this, I'll say, let's just give Satan a report card here based on what Elder Hales talks about. Because the importance of the family to the eternal plan of happiness, and that's probably the key point right there. Remember, because Elder President Oak said that Satan's going to oppose anything that is sacred to the Father's plan. Number one, he says Satan makes a major effort to destroy the sanctity of the family. And I say, okay, stop right there. How's he doing on that one? Is that an A? Is that a B? Is that a B plus? No, I think that's an A. To demean the importance of the role of men and women. How's he doing on that one? An A. Encourage moral cleanliness and violations of the sacred law of chastity. A plus plus plus. And then to discourage parents from placing the bearing and rearing of children as one of their highest priorities. And Janie, that's probably one that I hadn't thought much about lately, but I would say in the past decade, I've seen more of that one than ever before. That the highest priority may not be in every case, just raising or trying to raise righteous children.
Yeah. I mean, we see the dinks, right? That's the dual income, no children kind of movement we have in our culture today.
Right.
Or even parents that have children but kind of seem uninterested or asleep at the wheel, that aren't invested, that don't care, that kind of is like, I'm too tired, I'm too busy, I'm too whatever, kind of raise yourself kind of thing, and whatever happens.
Yeah.
So that's really sad.
Right.
So I love this from Elder Christofferson, from a talk that says Why Marriage, Why Family, from back in 2015, so about 10 years ago.
Which is really weird when you say 2015 now, because it feels like that was 2 weeks ago, and it was over 10 years ago.
I know, time is crazy. But he said, in the premortal world, Lucifer rebelled against God and his plan, and his opposition only grows in intensity. He fights to discourage marriage and the formation of families. And where marriages and families are formed, he does what he can to disrupt them. He attacks everything that is sacred about human sexuality, tearing it from the context of marriage with a seemingly infinite array of immoral thoughts and acts. He seeks to convince men and women that marriage and family priorities can be ignored or abandoned, or at least made subservient to careers, other achievements, and the quest for self-fulfillment and individual autonomy. Certainly, the adversary is pleased when parents neglect to teach and train their children to have faith in Jesus Christ and be spiritually born again. Really powerful.
I can kind of see the link to that statement and what Elder Hales was saying about discouraging parents from placing the bearing and rearing of children as one of their highest priorities. Back to the idea of being neglectful when it comes to teaching our children the gospel, or making the raising of righteous children not necessarily our top priority. And so,
and like we've said in the past, back in decades past, you could have children and they kind of just,
you were in the flow.
You were in the flow. They were on the farm. You were talking to your kids. You know what I mean? Like, kids were just raised, all together, and kind of just raised in the, in the church and all that. But the culture is not that.
It's an anti-family culture now.
If we're not intentionally totally intentional and consistent with our kids, it's not going to happen.
Right. I believe that.
Yeah. And so to sum up kind of what we're saying, Bishop Victor L. Brown said, I believe Satan's ultimate goal is to destroy the family, because if he would destroy the family, he will not have just won the battle, he will have won the war.
Yeah.
And we can't let that happen.
We can't let him win that battle. You know, this is Elder Bednar, and this will be the last one on this, but this was given more recently as well. This was 2006, so that's now like 20 years ago. But what he said, and sometimes I like these older quotes because they're just prophetic, right? You can look back now and go, oh, wow, that really did happen. Satan works unremittingly to confuse understanding about gender, check plus, right? To promote the premature and unrighteous use of the procreative power, check plus, and to hinder righteous marriage precisely because marriage is ordained of God. And the family is central to the plan of happiness. But then listen to this. This is just so cool, I think. He said, the adversary's attacks upon eternal marriage will continue to increase in intensity, frequency, and sophistication. And that is exactly what we've seen since 2006. I mean, we've seen now things that we never even dreamed of having to, express, defend, think about. The sophistication of Satan's attacks is, I think, in my mind, just off the charts, you know.
And I think that has a lot to do with technology. I mean, the sophistication, the constant barrage we're getting of anti-family messages, anti-marriage, messages, anti-children,
Well, here's an interesting little stat for you. That message was given in 2006. Do you know the greatest invention in the world that came out in 2007?
2007?
Yeah.
That had to be the iPhone?
That's it. Ding, ding, ding. You nailed it. It's just,
wow.
These are true prophets, seers, and revelators, And, I love something, kind of turning this just a little bit, that J. Richard Clark said years ago, because he said, why do you think Satan is so obsessed with destroying the family? I mean, why that kind of focus? There's so many other things to focus on, right? Well, we know that the family is central to the plan of salvation, and so we could just say, well, that's probably why. But he says the family stands for everything that Satan wants and cannot have. And then he goes on to just say, look, he'll never be a father, he'll never be a husband, he'll never be a grandfather. In fact, he says he can't even keep those he has led away from God. The family stands for everything that Satan wants and can't have. He'll never... I always kind of like to build on something Douglas Brindley said years ago, that Satan will never hold a baby daughter in his arms and give her a name and a blessing. He'll never sit, at the bottom of those steps at the airport watching a son or daughter get off an airplane from a mission, or sitting in the temple, watching a son or daughter be married for all eternity, laying hands upon a son or daughter's head, having all these connections with a wife. I mean, he's never going to have any of that. And so what does he do? He spends his days, and he's doing a great job. I think we've kind of clarified that. He's doing a pretty great job of destroying
all of ours.
Right. Let's think about for a minute, what in the world is Satan? How's Satan doing this, by the way? He's the master of deceit, the father of lies. But how is he pulling people away?
I think as many people as there are, he has that many tactics. You know what I mean? He knows all of our Achilles heels. He knows there's some things that work for everyone, like
some universals.
Pornography probably, works for
a lot of people.
Things like that. But also another big tactic is, I think, distraction.
Yeah.
I think the over scheduling of our time, just trying to crowd so much in, at least with this generation, I think.
Right.
I think we're just so inundated with so much coming at us.
Well, I remember that, Janie, even when we were parents, of how I just look back now and think, how did we do that? I don't even know how we did it. Just as we watch our own children doing it now, I look back and think, well, yeah, that's what we were doing. It was dividing up.
Have 3 ball games one night, and a choir concert, and a
cross-country meet, and a football game.
And our kids are literally living that life now. It makes me tired because I know what they're going through.
Right, just watching them. Yeah, I mean, and I think I heard Sherry Dew say that once, where she said Satan would have us so busy that we're running around to every soccer game in town that we don't have time to connect with each other, and spend time together, but also to focus on the gospel the way that we would want to.
Or even have family dinner together.
Yeah.
It really reminds me of President Oak's talk in our last general conference, which was so awesome, the family-centered gospel. But he says, in my boyhood, 80 years ago, I lived on my grandparents' farm in a setting where almost all that happened during the day was under the direction of the family. There was no television or other electronics to distract from family activities. In contrast, in today's urban society, few members experience consistent family-centered activities. Urban living and modern transportation, organized entertainment, and high-speed communication have made it easy for youth to treat their homes as boarding houses. So true. Don't we see that?
Oh, yeah.
Where they sleep and take an occasional meal, but where there is far less parental direction of their activities. Love that. So true.
Well, it's so true, right? And once again, we're not trying to sit here and tell people, so everyone quit all the activities. No, we can't do that. I mean, that's pretty important stuff, right? But we've got to find a way to find more balance, and I do think,
and carve out family time.
Yeah.
If we're not intentional and consistent about that,
right,
it will get sucked up. We won't have any.
Yeah,
And Satan loves that, because then families fracture, families, splinter, contention arises. It's just,
well, everyone's just in a state of frantic, right? And that's everything's a crisis. There's just no time. Like when you read Janie, what you just read about President Oaks, you just visualize a family kind of sitting in the family room together and just talking and relaxing. And it wasn't like, someone had to be running off to a meeting or a whatever. And once again, I didn't grow up in the church, but I don't remember my parents ever having to run off to anything other than if we had a game or something, right? Where we were running everywhere like chickens with our heads cut off, and we're probably watching our own children do that too. But think about that incredible tactic of, look what Satan just did. He found a way to pull the parents or the children out of the home and away from each other. And once again, I love what you said about intentionality, because we're not advocating, hey, everyone pull your kids out of everything and let's just sit home every night. But we've got to find a place to put that, right?
But I know that we as parents did have to pull our kids out of some things. We did have to say, no, we're not doing that this season. We need a break. We've talked about that in the past, how we had to pull a daughter out of gymnastics because she had no clue what was going on in our family.
You remember the story? You told it before. Now I'm trying to remember it. If you announced something to her and she's like, we were
talking about, what everyone needed to pack for a family vacation or a little trip we were taking. And she was like, what, where are we going? She had never even heard that.
All the other kids were all ready to rock and roll, right?
And we realized, okay, this is, and I am proud of some of our kids too, who have said, no, we're not doing that this season. Everyone's going to take a break, because we need family time. Or one of our daughters, they didn't sign their kids up for anything this season because they love to ski together. And even though there's no snow, it was kind of a bad year. But like, they said, no, we are going skiing together as a family on Saturdays. We're not doing ball games. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love the intentionality and the looking forward and realizing, oh, our families were growing apart. Nope, we're coming back in. We're gathering everyone back in. We're putting a halt to this. Having our kids trying to be an Olympic basketball player, at age 6 is not the priority at this season of our life. So we're calling a halt to this.
Yeah, I thought that was a good call on their part. Janie, think about it this way, and I don't want to be morbid, but let's just say there was a threat against any of us, and someone threatened. They said, "We're gonna burn your house down." And that's our goal. We're going to burn your house down. And I don't think we would just go drive away and go to our basketball game that night, right? I think if we knew that someone was going to try to burn our house down, the first thing that we would do is try to secure our home and protect it. And probably the second thing we would do is try to find out who's trying to burn our house down, right? But I think about that for a minute when I think of the idea of President Nelson telling us that Satan is quadrupling his efforts, to destroy us, or, however that quote went. And so to sit idly by and to not quadruple our own efforts to strengthen and shore up the family, we're going to be at a deficit, right? We're going to be upside down in that situation. And so we really have to ramp it up if we want to keep him away from us. And by the way, we can. Isn't that one of the coolest things ever, as we watch the world in turmoil today and all the challenging things going on, to know that we can still live in peace, that we can have happiness and joy in our lives and our homes with our family. And that's because we're anchored to the gospel.
And I just want to, what you just said, I think, and again, we all know this, but we just need constant reminders, because I think we as parents and grandparents also get really distracted. We get caught up in the world and just the fun things and just all the thing. But in this talk from Elder Oaks, he also said parents, single or married, and others like grandparents, fill that role for children who are the master teachers. They are the most effective teaching. The most effective teaching is by example. But he said the family circle is the ideal place to demonstrate and learn eternal values. So it's in the home, family. They're not going to get it in seminary. They're not going to get it in young women's or Aaronic priesthood. I mean, they might hear about it, but that's not where it's going to sink in. It's going to sink in our family rooms, around the kitchen table, or while we're driving in the car from their parents and grandparents.
And especially, Janie, I know you have more to read there, but just to make this point, especially as the church becomes more home-centered, church-supported, that's where the rubber is going to meet the road, is in the home, right? That's where we're going to actually be able to spend the time versus in a Sunday school classroom, for 30 minutes, every other week or whatever.
Yeah. And so he goes on to say, it's the ideal place to demonstrate and learn eternal values, such as the importance of marriage and children, because they're not going to get that anywhere else. They're not going to get that on the internet or
from school. Yeah.
It's to learn the purpose of life, the true source of joy. It's also the best place to learn other essential lessons of life, such as kindness, forgiveness, self-control, and the value of education and honest work. And then later he talks about other, like, just life skills that we, how to clean a home, how to cook, how, he talks about the importance of that, but that it all happens in the home.
Right. I love that. I think that's amen, President Oaks. Amen. So let us finish today. We'll finish today by just talking about how we can protect our families, our homes from Satan's attacks. And I think number one is probably the most obvious, but let's make Christ the center of our home. Think about how we do that. Is Christ the center of our home? And if someone walked into our home, would they know that we are believers of Jesus Christ, right? I mean, that's kind of one of the things we would ask ourselves. Hopefully there's not only images of the Savior in our home, but that we're having discussions about Christ. We're talking about what would Jesus do. The gospel and everything Christ taught would be up for conversation all the time. And I do think that Elder Neil Anderson's famous talk from 2010 of...
Tell me the stories of Jesus.
Thank you. Tell me the stories of Jesus is a great place to start if you've never read that before.
I've heard people that have grown up in homes where the church was never talked about.
Yeah.
Ever. They'd go to church on Sunday or young women's on Wednesday or whatever, or primary.
Or the gospel was never.
The gospel, no. And they'd go home and it was never, ever mentioned
brought up again, yeah.
And so we can't do that. If we're going to save our kids,
that's
if we're
not
going to keep
work.
Satan away, it has to be a constant thing. Our kids can never doubt whether we know it's true or that whether we know that Jesus Christ is the center of our life. They should never wonder.
Right.
Okay, point number 2 is, in order to protect our families from Satan's attacks, we need to strengthen our marriages first. And not all of us are married. Some of us might be raising children alone or single. But if we are married, we need to strengthen our marriage, because that is the foundation of the family. And if our marriages are weak, or we are arguing or contending, the whole family, the kids see that. They get that.
I think you can kind of say, as the marriage goes, so goes the family in a lot of ways, right?
Absolutely. So if not, we need to seek professional help, if it's fallen apart, but if we can repair it, or if we just need to get back on track, we can get back to having regular, like, date nights. We can start praying together at night. I know you've said that too, that couples that come in and see you in counseling, if they're not praying together at night, their marriage is kind of falling apart.
It's one of the first thing that goes. Yeah.
We need to speak kindly and respectfully and just repair things as they come and really work on our marriages. And it is work. There is no marriage that is just hunky-dory all the time and is just perfect. We all need to be constantly working and striving in our marriage.
One of the things I like to watch is I like it when we're around our own children and I see them as couples laughing together. And when I see them laughing together and smiling at each other, I always think, I'm not worried about them. You worry about the couples that don't ever laugh together, right? A little bit. So another one, we'll call this the third one, is just to establish consistent daily spiritual habits. This is nothing new. everyone listening to this podcast could give a lesson on that. But it is amazing, even though we know how important it is to have family prayer, to have family scripture study, to have a family home evening, to attend the temple together. It's just amazing that we all know that, but it's not happening. It's not happening across the board. And it's not even happening in a profound way. It's almost the minority is probably who engages in those type of practices. We did a study in our stake, and of the active families who took the survey, only 24% said they were having a family scripture study on a regular basis. And so that's not going to protect us against Satan either. We're going to have to ramp it up in that area if that's something that we haven't done before. And I am amazed, like Janie, you were saying, of how many people I know that we talk to about those type of things that would say, yeah, we don't do that, you know.
And I know, and just to add to that list, Mark, of the things that the practical applications of things that we need to be doing with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know people are like, oh, how do you have time for all this? We need to make time. It has to be
This is
intentional.
the importance. These are the big rocks that Cubby puts in the jar, right?
Right.
And then the little rocks.
Right. But I would add to that the parent-child interviews. And I know you did a podcast on that, a couple months ago. But the more I think about that, how will we know where our kids are? Or how will we ever develop that relationship where they can open up and talk to us, or feel free and, to share, oh, I'm really struggling with this, or this happened in my life, or whatever, without those consistent interviews. I mean, I look back at those in our life and I just think, wow, I think that was just so important in raising our kids, that we had that one-on-one interview. Yeah. And again, I know it's one more thing to do, but I think it's so important.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to go back and listen to that episode. Okay. The next thing we can do, and again, we all know this, it's been drilled into us, is that we need to guard our families from media and technology use. We have to. The more that I research and the more I look into it, that is Satan's number one.
That's his platform,
right now, it's not idly just putting bad things on the internet. He is seeking out our kids. He's
going after them, yeah.
Purposely. I mean, our kids can find garbage on Etsy. Our kids can find garbage on Pinterest. These little innocent websites, you think? No, they can find anything on this. Right. And if we as parents we need to be like, we can't vigilant. Just have blinders on. We can't just be ignorant. We have to realize that Satan is absolutely 100% going after our kids. And if our kids have a smartphone in their hand,
that's the channel.
Oh my goodness. We have to be on guard.
So once again, Janie, like you're saying, all the stuff we all probably know, keeping devices out of bedrooms at night, monitoring our children's cell phones. I think you and I really are fans of Jonathan Haidt in his book on the anxious generation, giving that recommendation that maybe children shouldn't have even a smartphone until they're 16. But I think those are really important things to think about. But those phones need to be monitored. And then the next one, this would be number 5, just building strong emotional connections with our family. I mean, this is really one of the most important things we can do, because if our children do struggle and have challenges in their life, then we want them to be able to talk to us, and I think that whatever we can do to open that channel up to let our children know that we are always there for them, but we're having conversations with them, right? We're laughing with them. We're sharing life together with them. And we have a relationship where we can just talk and converse. And that's probably been one of my favorite things in our life, that we've had that relationship with our children where we can just talk about anything. But we want to be able to keep that door open. I love what President Kimball said years ago, that sin comes when the communication lines are down. And so not only are we talking, but we are connecting, and we're showing affection and giving each other compliments and praise. Anyway, I just think whatever we can do to build that connection, that strong emotional connection, is going to help us fight Satan off in our homes. Because then our kids won't be looking for things in other places, right?
Yeah, totally. The 6th one that we kind of identified is teaching our children, and I say early and young,
right,
to develop their own testimonies and their decision-making abilities. Because if they go through their teenage years and they don't have testimonies and they don't care, that's not an importance to them to pray or to be in the scriptures, boy, they are going to struggle and flounder. But the earlier that we can get them to teaching them as little children to pray on their own every night and every morning, to be in the scriptures, to be reading the Book of Mormon. Boy, I'm so impressed with the youth in our stake who, we just had state conference this past weekend, and a couple of them spoke, and the way they talked about being in the scriptures and finding answers in the scriptures and having a testimony in the Book of Mormon. It's just so impressive.
Yeah, it really
that
is.
They, that now that as they go into the mission field, they'll be able to bear witness of that. But we've got to do it early. They're never too early to start.
Well, I think even the idea of teaching our children how to feel the Spirit, how to recognize the Spirit in their life, how to have their prayers answered. I'll meet a lot of our college students at BYU, and it's very obvious that they've never had a conversation with their parents on how to get an answer from the Spirit, right? And so I do think what you're saying.
Those things are definitely taught in the home. And I think our goal is not just to raise good kids, we want to raise really strong spiritual disciples.
Right. That are what was your word? Self-reliant, right? That they understand all these things on their own and they're living them.
And have had experiences with the Spirit and receiving answers. Yep.
The last one, Janie, is probably your favorite ones. I shouldn't have hogged this one, but the idea of filling your home with joy and fun and light. And once again, I always think of your great comment that you've shared with us a time or two, and hopefully what we've tried to do in our own home, but we want it to be fun, right? We want our homes to be filled with light and love, but fun and joy and happiness. And once again, back to you, where as a teenager, you hated being away from home because you always felt like you were missing out on something if you were on a date or with another group, because you were always thinking, crud, they are having so much fun at home right now and I'm not there. I think you were the original FOMO person, right?
Probably.
And so, when we make our homes like that, when we're laughing together and having awesome family traditions and doing fun things together as a family, things that we can look forward to doing as a family.
Wholesome recreation, as it says in the Family Proclamation.
Yeah. I love this thought that positive shared experiences create emotional bonds that buffer families against stress and temptation. And homes that are filled with joy leave less room for contention and darkness. So no question about that. We want our homes to be a place where our children want to be and not where they're trying to get away from. So as we think about a great invitation for those listening today, if we're going to say, let's do something, what can we do here?
Well, my idea for let's do something is if Satan is quadrupling his efforts, which we've been told,
yes,
then we need to do more than that, because like you always say, it just puts us at even par.
If we quadruple
our efforts.
Okay.
So if we double that, that's octuple. And that's a real word. By the way, I looked that up.
Okay.
We need to octuple our efforts.
Which is times 2.
Times.
Yeah.
Our efforts in protecting our children, our marriage, our families. We have to.
Yeah.
And I know it takes time. It takes effort. It takes energy.
Right.
But what greater thing can we be doing in this life?
What better focus could we have than that? I love that. So everyone, thank you so much for being with us today. And we're grateful for that. And we look forward to being with you again. We would encourage you to just share this episode with anyone that could benefit by it. And we look forward to being with you again.